My name is Belle Hatfield. I am a counselor at the town of Yarmouth, and I'm from the town of Yarmouth. I brought in 2 identification bracelets from my great aunt Rita Ferguson, who was a nursing sister in the First World War. And so we sifted through a lot of things, trying to sort of piece together what we had found.
Providing medical assistance to British Expeditionary Forces throughout World War I, the Harvard Surgical Unit was responsible for the treatment and rehabilitation of wounded allies. Organised in 1915 in response to growing devastation, its volunteer members came together from Harvard University and Massachusetts General Hospital to operate General Hospital No. 22 of the Royal Army Medical Corps, located in Camier, France. Among its initial contingent were 32 surgeons, 3 dentists, and 75 nurses who acted as the first line of treatment, cleaning wounds, administering pain medication, and offering comfort under the impossible conditions of war. By the time it was demobilized in 1919, the Harvard Surgical Unit, serving in General Hospital No. 22, had cared for more than 150,000 soldiers.
Belle, welcome to Militaria. Could you tell us what you brought in today?
Yes. So these are 2 identification bracelets that were in the effects, my family effects, from my great aunt Rita Ferguson, who was a nursing sister in the First World War.
Right, and how did you come to possess them?
Well, she obviously held on to them until the end of her life, and she died in 1957. And then they became part of the family memorabilia. And my sisters and brothers divided the family estate when my aunt Peggy died, and this was part of it.
So today's segment was interesting in it gave a different aspect of nursing in the First World War. So this was a Canadian that was living in New England. Each Red Cross in a nation is different. They're independent. They have the same name, Red Cross, but that doesn't mean they do the same things. And the interesting thing with these identification bracelets is that we have 2 of them, as you said, and the first one is dated 1917. And then you have the second one, which was dated 1918, and to do 2 different units, both her name on them. These aren't identity discs that soldiers would have worn around their neck. These are a piece of jewelry that a lady or a man would have gone and purchased and customized to however they wanted to. And obviously it was a souvenir for her because it reminded her of when she went and where she went.
Oh, that's interesting to know. So we thought of it as that this was her way of being identified should she encounter peril.
The problem with that is, especially in the First World War with shrapnel and explosions, having something around your wrist is not a good place to have an identity disc. It would have helped, yes, if something horrible happened to her and she was intact.
Yeah. Well, they were very important to her because they were, they stayed with her throughout her life.
Right, and she probably would have worn them as a piece of jewelry afterwards, just as a reminder, or a keepsake, sort of like a charm bracelet, for lack of a better term, that something interesting to talk about when she's in a public place.
Well, I think that the most wonderful thing about this is that these artifacts propelled primarily my sister to do deeper research into the nursing.
So Belle, you say your sister did a fair amount of research on Rita and her service, as a nurse and overseas. I was wondering if you could share some of that information, like tell us who Rita was and what sort of person she was.
Well, first of all, I think her age when she went overseas in 1917, she was approaching middle age, 36 years old. Had been established as a nursing sister in the United States for almost 20 years. I think she graduated around the turn of the 20th century and was one of the early registrants in the American Red Cross in their attempts to professionalize nursing. And so when she heeded the call to go over with the Harvard Surgical Unit in 1917, she was already fully established in her career. She served in the Surgical Hospital number 22 as it done Camille France. It was one of the largest surgical hospitals in the area. And when the war was over in 1918, she was in Paris, just spending some time. She went to an opera. She met with my grandfather, who was also in the war. He was serving in the No. 2 Construction Battalion as an officer. And so they met there, and she had the opportunity to join up again for the American Red Cross Near East service in Palestine. And so she traveled from Paris to Egypt and then through to Palestine, and spent 5 or 6 months north of Aleppo working with mostly Armenian refugees. Her experiences she documented pictorially, and the museum has that record for us. And that was what allowed my sister to do all of the referencing and end up with the research work that she was able to accumulate. When I think about women at the turn of the 20th century and where they were in society, and that they chose to put themselves in danger, to serve alongside men, to do good in the world.
So, Belle, thank you so much for bringing in these two wonderful artifacts, but more so the story of Rita. I think that's the big thing here. Normally, this is where I ask what your plans are for these, but these are already residing at the Yarmouth County Museum along with her other memorabilia. Do they have plans to tell her story?
Well, I think that they do. Story of Rita for Yarmouth County Museum. For us, it's more about just brushing off our family history and taking another look at it. But if there are things of interest to the broader community, I think that would be wonderful. I'm sure Rita would be very happy.
To me, it's an unusual story because we had nursing sisters serving with the Canadian Army in the First World War. To have someone that's a Canadian serving with the American Red Cross, not with the American Army, and the ties between the Red Cross and the Army and what they did and how they supported the British effort until the Americans got there. Really unusual aspect of the First World War service of women that needs to be talked about. So once again, thank you so much for bringing this.
Oh, it was my pleasure. Thank you.